cause I can do it my way. Me making music's like shooting hoops in the driveway.
Today's guest is someone who once sat across from me in a very different setting. Bob Domingo interviewed me for the CASE program in LIU Post. Now the roles are reversed. Bob is a professor of communication sciences and disorders, but long before that title, he was a performer. Since high school, he has been auditioning, singing, directing, studying how to deliver a line and how to read a room. For years, those worlds stayed separate. Speech-language pathology by day, theater by night, until one workshop changed everything. Bob realized the skills that made great improv, listening, spontaneity, presence, are the same skills that unlock communication for people who struggle socially. At a time when most people started winding down, Bob started something new. This is a conversation about merging identities, reinventing yourself in life, and why there are no wrong answers, only offers. Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. It's very good to see you. I think it's 25 years ago that you interviewed me for the CASE LIU program.
I remember those days fondly. It's been quite a while. But yeah, no, it's great to see you again. And it's great to hear that you're doing so well. Oh, it's been quite a while. 25 years? That's incredible. I remember like it was the day before yesterday.
I remember because I was working at Ascent with Dr. Nancy Chameau, and she said to me, why don't you go for this program? And I remember having to go to Farmingdale, which, by the way, like many, many years later, turns out that your office was down the block from my now wife, Denise. So she was from Farmingdale. So that was the first time I visited Farmingdale. So let's dive into, I guess, Act One, as we would say. When did you first fall in love with performing?
Wow. I would probably want to say high school, though I remember not so fondly a time when I missed a cue in a high school musical and I came crashing through the door that didn't open. And it was one of those memories that you wish would fade into the distance, but it never did. But despite that, I started to continue to do more drama and singing in college. And I think that's where I really found my footing. One would say I was a minor in theater. I never majored in it because I felt, well, I needed a day job. I didn't think I was good enough to, get into Broadway or what have you. But the dream is still there, though, I will say.
Yeah, I mean,
But I would probably say college, where I auditioned quite a bit and got a few good roles.
we said this before we started, but you're the third person in a row that I've interviewed that has been heavily into improv and theater. And
Wow.
all different jobs, different walks of life, but just the commonality of theater and performance. And none of them are really, besides the teacher, but it's not their day job, right? It's something
Right.
they loved and it stuck with them. So I think that's important. That's actually kind of what we talk about on this podcast, is that whether you become the professional at the thing you're passionate about or not does not matter. It matters that you keep doing it and that you love it, right? That's the whole point of the show. So I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how do you go from theater to improv? When do you start taking improv?
Well, I think it happens during the rehearsal periods when you're working together with people that are either new to you or that you've performed with before, and you start to deliver lines or do whatever gestures or movements on the stage, and something happens and it kind of brings you in another direction. I've always been open to seeing things and hearing things that might help to inform my performance, and so I would allow myself a little leeway, a little bit of creativity to move in a certain direction. That's why I really like interpreting lines. What word will I hit? What sentence will I tone down or tone up to make the emotion of the scene something significant? So I guess in all of those creative decisions I made with the script, I could see how it kind of evolved into like, what can I do now that I don't have the words in front of me, but I have the means to express myself in a nonverbal way. And, as you mentioned, speech is my day job. And I've worked with many people, both verbal and nonverbal, with varying degrees of communicative abilities or disabilities. And so I began to focus on, looking at them, looking at their facial expressions, looking at how they move, listening to the tone of voice, and realizing that even though they can't tell me the words, they're telling me something, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So
This is not, it's kind of a little off topic, but have you listened to the Telepathy Tapes podcast yet? It is,
telepathy.
the telepathy tapes. It's about kids with nonverbal autistic kids who th- their uh, their paras and parents actually started to note that they may be reading their minds. So it's fascinating.
Wow.
It's very cool.
It is.
Very cool. Yeah. I definitely highly recommend it. It's very awesome. Okay.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, definitely worthwhile. Okay, so what you noted in our discussion beforehand, there was a workshop that kind of changed the trajectory of where you were going. Tell me about that
Right.
workshop.
Well, I'm a speech language pathologist. As such, I have to attend conferences for continuing education purposes. So I went to the national convention, which was held up in Boston in 2018, and the American Speech and Hearing Association annual convention. And I attended an early morning workshop, and I don't remember the title exactly, but it had to do with improv and developmental disability, which is the term we use for people on the spectrum, people with intellectual disability, people with cerebral palsy, etc., people who are born with various ailments. And I said, well, this sounds like it might be interesting. I've always done theater, and in my professional life, that's what I've always dealt with was, like the challenged population. And I attended it, and it really was life changing. There were two professors there, one from Penn State University and one from Indiana University, who were essentially talking from the perspective of being teacher trainers, because they both had programs at their respective universities where they brought people in who worked with, a let's say a target population, children or adults, and would teach them various kind of creative techniques embodied in the word improv. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. These are the kinds of games that I like to play if I'm directing a show, which I've done some of that in my nighttime job as a thespian. I would do some of that stuff and like have people imagine different scenarios, use different voices, and that's what they were talking about. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And so it was like, and it was at that moment, or actually not at that moment, but as I was driving home from Boston, that I came to a realization that my professional career was kind of like on the downward slope. I had done so many different things. I had worked in a private office, my own. I had worked in hospitals and worked for different companies, but it was satisfying to a degree. But when I realized that I could combine the day job and the night job, it was life changing. It really was.
Wow, what a beautiful dovetail. I mean, I think that that's just kind of something I've seen a lot on this podcast where you never know when that thing is going to come around that's going to be like, "Oh my god, I my whole life was leading up to this," where my professional career and my passion meet, and man, that's just got to be the best feeling in the world.
So it really was. It really was. So what I did, like shortly after that, was invite one of the speakers who I attended his workshop, and I asked him to come to my university because I teach. Can I say my college name?
Mhm.
Sure, Long
You can.
Island University in
Yep.
Brookville, New York. And I invited him to come and give us a day of his time. And so in the morning, he gave us, the didactic stuff. And then in the afternoon, we had like the pedagogy. We had the hands-on stuff, and it was fantastic. And I gathered together my students, some, professional people across different disciplines. I brought in individuals who have developmental disabilities, their parents and their caretakers. Because in my mind, this is a technique that is not just for me to give to you, but for many people to participate in. And in fact, the guy who I brought in is not a speech pathologist. He's like a special educator. So that informs me that this is for everyone. This is not just something that a speech language pathologist can have ownership of. This is really something that everyone can participate in. And so that was the start. Shortly after that, I started running my own sessions where I brought in people to do some, improv for an hourly sessions weekly.
Well, I mean,
So,
having been currently am a special ed teacher still, and having gone to LIU Post for my training, I know that, and I've worked with every population. I currently work in ICT, but I started my career with kids with developmental disabilities, PDD, back when there was PDD and there was autism and Asperger's back in the
Right.
day when that
Back
happened.
back when, yeah.
Back when. And I remember how creative you had to get to teach communication because there are so many different therapies out there and different ideologies, but so
Right.
often you wind up combining all of them in some way to really kind of what works for one child may not work for the other child. So, I remember
Exactly.
labeling everything in the room for like the teach methodology. And then I remember having PECs and I remember having, prompted. So there's so much there. Social stories probably kind of dovetails nicely with
Sure.
the improv. So yeah, you really have to get creative with that. And so I could see how this would be a really cool methodology and just a cool toolkit to have to.
It really is. I mean, a big part of what I try to teach to others is the recognition of social cues.
Mm.
And for some people, I mean, they've heard the term, but like specifically what I mean is, like facial expression, vocal expression, gesture expression, and also physicality, the movements that people bring into whatever it is that they're engaged in communicatively. And so the recognition of social cues, I think, is so important as a jumping off point for like engaging in improv, because once you can identify, let's say, facial expression, you can give people a sheet that has like a dozen or more different facial expressions and say, what does that emotion look like to you? And then you get into like, when do you feel that emotion? Now let me see your face do that emotion. And then we add, now that we've got the face to show anger, sadness, confusion, make a noise. Don't say a word, but make a noise that sounds like confusion or anger or happiness. And then we kind of build from there, you know?
I love this. I think this is, and actually it's making me think of a student right now that I have in class that I want to try this with. So,
Cool. Very cool.
I
Now, where
think
do you work?
Oceanside.
Oceanside.
Yeah.
I'm available for sessions.
Oh, good. Hey, listen, I've been in Oceanside for 23 years and
Okay.
yeah, started in the, life skills class and then have been in every kind of level. I've worked in elementary, middle, high school, um, back to elementary now, sixth grade, ICT. Um, yeah, I mean, that's one reason why I love special education in general is that it's no 2 years are the same. It keeps you very, very on your
That is
toes.
so true. Yeah, that is so true.
Sometimes I wish I had one curriculum to teach, but it keeps me moving, keeps me going. So I love it. I still love it. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about your, college career. How did you wind up getting into teaching at LIU? Where did that come from?
Okay, so back in the day, it was in the 90s, or so because I started working there as at LIU. It was called CW Post at the time, and I taught as an adjunct. I taught a course to graduate students in the September of 1993, and then I was fortunate enough to interview and get a full-time position for the following semester. So that was in the spring of 1994. So that's how long I've been there. Now, a funny bit of story there was that I was doing a summer musical at the time, and I was playing a flamboyant movie director. My hair was not the same color as it is now. It was a little darker. But what I did was in an attempt to show off some of that flamboyance, I dyed it like kind of red, and then I put on affectation in my voice to sound flamboyant, the way like an old Hollywood
Yep.
director would sound. And then I took an interview for the full-time position, and at that point, the play had been over for about, oh, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And as you wash your hair, the dye leaves. My hair was pink, man. My hair was pink, and they hired me nonetheless. How do you like that?
Hey, listen, you
So
fit the bill. I love it.
I thought that was, I'm like, Christ, look at me, you know?
Hey,
But
kudos to
I've been
that.
I've been I've been teaching since, full time since 1994. We have an undergraduate and a graduate program there. And I've always been, well, I guess I'll have to use the word flamboyant since I already used it. I always try to be engaging. I mean, from a personal perspective, I've taken many classes, both in my training to get I got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, I got my PhD. You sit in a lot of classrooms. And then after that, you sit in a lot of lecture halls to get your continuing ed. And some professors are like, you know,
Hmm.
they're not completely engaging, and so you
Right.
start to find yourself drifting off. looking at your phone, what have you. I never wanted to be that particular teacher. I wanted people to stay engaged. I mean, I try to prepare interesting notes or video, that sort of thing. I have people come up to the front of the room, like whenever, especially those who look like they're a little distracted. Come
Hmm.
on up, show us, abdominal breathing, or use a loud voice because in speech sometimes there are populations that have very muted tones. Maybe a person with Parkinson's disease or a person with
Hmm.
a stroke. So I have them come up and demonstrate a loud voice. I try to get them engaged. And it's served me well over the
What's your
years.
What's your favorite population to work with, if you had one?
Well, I guess it's the population that I'm currently dealing with. I really find them very interesting. I work with teens and young adults on the spectrum, so I'm getting those people who are maybe transitioning out of school and now they're entering vocational programs to teach them job related skills and what have you. There's a program on LIU campus right now. I'm going to give them a shout out,
Yeah, please.
PTW. PTW stands for Positive Transitions to Work. And I have worked with them in the past. Last semester, I taught an improv class to the Honors College at Post, and I arranged for members of PTW to join us on a biweekly basis on Wednesdays so that they can engage with my college age students and do improv. And we ended the semester by doing a show in one of the performance spaces on campus. And this semester, I'm bringing in like a smaller group, five, because I had 30 students in that class. Now I'm going to be taking in on a rotating basis 5 to 6 students into their program where they have between 15 and 20. And we're going to continue this little improv experiment.
That's
So
awesome.
I really like that population. And my feeling is that if I can help them in any way to make the jump from being a student to being maybe gainfully employed or simply happy that they're able to be with others in a decent way, in a communicative way, in a cognitively connected way with others, then I think I've really done my job. Plus, the benefit is I'm teaching people how I do it
Right.
so that they can continue. That's my whole point. That's why I feel like I'm at a point now where I would like to really push the teacher training a
Hmm.
bit more.
Hmm.
I've been done some lectures and what have you, but I want to push that envelope a little bit more now.
I will tell you a good story that I think you'll appreciate. So,
Yeah.
when I worked for the autism class, they were elementary school kids. I had a boy named Brian who was not a great communicator, but very, very good at drums. Um,
Cool.
Later on in life, I had another child who was ADHD. It was a different class, different kind of level. He was an amazing guitarist. Well, Brian and this other boy, Joe, graduated. They're the same age. I happen to be a very big Grateful Dead fan.
I love the Dead.
I mean,
You're a
who does?
Deadhead?
Yeah, man, for sure, for sure. So Joe wound up becoming a home trainer, picked up Brian. They're in a band now called Westlake, a Dead cover band.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, I mean, they're fantastic too. And Brian plays drums, Joe plays guitar. Joe gets paid as a teacher to Brian, but they're also friends and they just travel around Long Island. I mean, it's
That is,
fantastic.
what's the name of the band? Westlake?
Westlake, yes, Westlake.
Westlake. I'll have to
Yeah.
be on the lookout.
For sure. You know what? I remember the first time Joe told me, because I had him in high school and I had Brian in elementary school. When Joe told me, I have this boy, Brian, I'm like, oh, I know this kid. He still plays drums. He's like, yeah, he's a great drummer. And he's our drummer for the band. And it's a whole thing. It's fantastic. It's one of the best things that's ever happened in my life for them.
That's and to have contributed to that.
Yeah. I
It
mean, it's
it
awesome.
gives you such a feeling. It's like what you did in your life was worthwhile.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
That that is so cool. I love that.
And they're good too, which is really amazing. They're really
Yeah,
good.
excellent.
All right. So let's talk about your book. You just wrote a book. Tell me about
I
it.
did. So it's called the Improv Playbook for Autism and Diverse Communication Styles. I originally wanted to have communication disorders in there, but the publishers felt that if we go in another they don't want it to sound too much like therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Valid point. I mean, they're publishers; they know what they're talking about. But diverse communication styles, and after they floated that idea, I realized, you know what? That's spot on because I'm talking about different kinds of communication styles, not just verbal, not just verbal. And so I write about it from the perspective of, where I started going to this convention and learning about improv and inviting the people to come and give us some training on that. And then I talk about how I started my own ascent into the realm of teaching improv. So the book is intended, and it's by Routledge
Hmm.
Publishing. It's coming out this year in April of 2026, and the intent is to have it be the textbook that I use when I teach improv, and also if people are interested in purchasing it and or having the knowledge in that book so that I can come to their programs. I would like to be able to provide, training to people in my version, in my idea of what I think improv can be as a tool to help individuals who have limited social skills.
So when did you think, two questions.
Yeah.
Question number one, is it an audiobook and did you read the book? Because you have a great reading voice, speaking voice. So if you have an audio
Well,
version, you should read it.
Well, if they want to float an audio version, I'll be the first one to sign on. In fact, I'm speaking to you from what used to be a closet in my basement, and as you can see, I've got this wall back here. It's like quilted stuff. I've kind of soundproofed it, because for a short time, for a hot New York minute, I was doing voiceover stuff, and but the gigs are few and far between. AI has taken over a lot of that. So and now I sit in this room and ponder what my next moves will be. But if somebody wants me to read my own book, I'm I'm all about it.
Yeah, you would be
I
very
I
good at it.
like to throw in humor wherever I can. So if I were to read my own book, I would know exactly how to tell the joke. Let's put it that way.
Perfect. So when did you decide to write the book? Has this always been something you were into, or did it just come kind of naturally? How did it start?
That's funny because sometimes I'll say things in class that just are kind of clever. He said while he patted his own back, kind of clever. And one student once said, you could put that on a T-shirt. Kind of monetize this stuff. And I realized maybe I do have a book in me. I would often think about because I always like to write. I was for a short time the president of the Long Island Speech and Hearing Association, which is a regional association of speech language pathologists and audiologists on Long Island. And as such, we had a quarterly newsletter that came out, and there was always an opportunity as president to do commentary. And I always made sure that it wasn't that kind of dry, the toast kind of presentation. I would, throw in, at least I thought, humor and whatnot. And I felt like, okay, so I have a certain ability to put thought into word. So I guess it was a combination of things when students said, "You said that really well. Thank you for explaining it that way." That I realized that maybe I should, put down some thoughts. So the whole book only. I mean, I know people who write, in any amount of time increments. It took me like maybe 2 years, Took me about 2 years. And with feedback that I got from colleagues and friends, I was able to take things out, add new things. And well, I hope people like it. I feel like I've touched on a number of different things in the book. I have a whole section on just games
Hmm.
that you can play, games that are solo games that are meant for two people, and then games that are meant for the entire class. One thing that I really feel I'm proud of, I put in a number of different improv tools in one of the glossary, not glossary. Yeah. Well, at the end of the book where there's a section that you can look up the different tools, and it's things to look for because, when you're an SLP or you're a special educator and you notice things, now you've got decades of experience. I've got decades of experience. You and I are going to have students in our classrooms or therapy room who are observing us doing stuff, and you find like this is where I tell the student, look at what you just saw there. This is an example of. And my feeling is it's the same thing in improv. Look at the eye contact there. Look at the tone of voice. Listen to how they spoke that time. Listen to that callback. I love callbacks. A callback is when you're in a conversation and someone says something in the conversation that resonates with something that was said earlier. And that makes the conversation a cohesive element because you're remembering things from before and it shows good attention, you know? My
Now we're
feeling is somebody said to me, like, what's the key to being a good speech pathologist? And I said, you need to be observant and you need to listen. It's not just like you talk and they imitate you, but you have to listen to what they're saying or not saying. All right. And you have to watch them because they might not say anything, but they might show you in their expression, in their demeanor, that there's something on their mind and you can pursue that, you know?
Yeah, I
So
imagine that it has to be the hardest part is teaching kids how to recognize social cues, right? You have to be, I guess, in the
sure.
beginning, very, very obvious about them and then kind of fade it back into a natural social cue. I
Exactly.
find that, even in school now, I'll be overly obvious with how I am speaking to the children or acting. And in my own head, I say to myself, you should kind of tone that down because, not everyone's going to be that obvious with them in the real world. So, you want to make sure that I just find naturally a lot of educators do this. We are naturally throwing in prompts and cues all the time, which is good and bad.
You know, there's a word for that, right?
What's that?
Metalinguistic.
Really?
Metalinguistic means thinking about the language that you hear and now you're commenting on as an educator. You need to say that a different way. You sound angry right now. Are you angry? You shouldn't be angry. You sound angry. Look at the face that you're showing everybody now. You know, or listen to the tone of voice. So that's being very metalinguistic. I think that that kind of again, joining my day job to my nighttime avocation, when I direct shows, I'm always trying to get the emotion from the actor that I'm working with, you know? And if they deliver a line that's flat, they'll know about it from me, you know? So,
An interview with Ethan Hawke talking about his love of acting. And to listen to actors talk about acting is so incredible because as a non-actor, you know, I never understood how you could get such a masterful role and how you inhabit a role. And he described it so well. He described it working with a amazing actor like Robin Williams, where it's almost
oh God, yeah.
impossible not to get drawn in to that kind of that scenario. Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society would just you couldn't not act well around him. So I feel like there's people like that in the world that just kind of inhabit a role. It's fascinating to me. It really is.
It's funny you mentioned Robin Williams. I reference him and Meryl Streep as two of my favorite actors based on what they can do with a scene, not just read the words, but live the role. I reference the two of them as being all in with the with what they're portraying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I just actually rewatched Dead Poet Society with my son the other day. And a few years ago, he wouldn't have wanted to watch this movie, but I've been doing the classics with him. Classic, I say Shawshank Redemption, I say Braveheart.
Great movie, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're doing all those movies, and he absolutely loved Dead Poet Society. So it was a great one. I forgot how good it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So writing a book and actually having a career like yours has to have its shares of ups and downs, right? Like, was there ever a time where you were like, I need to just scrap it and go do something else, or you were always in it for the long haul?
I was as far as the book, that's the topic. I was always
Yeah.
in it for the long haul. The one or two times that I felt defeated to a degree was, when you start to shop a book around and you're told by different publishers, it's not for us. It's too limited a scope, etc. But interestingly, in the doing research and in writing the book, I came upon a particular a journal that not journal a book on improv with people who were on the spectrum, and I looked it up, and it was Routledge Publishing, and I learned, in looking at it a little further, that Routledge seems to have that seems to be a how do you say it, niche or
A
niche?
niche, a niche. I think
A
it's a niche.
niche.
Yeah.
They seem to have like a niche because if you look at their titles, there are a number of different improv titles in their compendium, and I think the thing that makes mine unique is the fact that I'm a speech language pathologist who comes from, a generation of working, not generation, but like the knowledge that I have in terms of speech and language and communication and the decades of time I've put into that, and now to how that informs my theatricality,
Hmm.
if you will. And so they were like they couldn't have been more welcoming. And so even though I had like those brief moments of some publishers saying it's not for us, I guess it's just, you have to like find the right, match. And I believe I did,
Yeah,
with them, so
that's very cool. I mean, so how do you go about? So you mentioned you want to be able to use this book as a textbook in your own classes.
yes.
As a
Yes.
teacher, are you allowed to do that as a professor? Can you say, "I'd like to use my own book," or there things you can do, things you
Well,
can't
I
do?
mean, I don't see where I couldn't do that, but if they say that that's, not allowed, I mean, I would certainly take sections from that. I mean, when I taught the class last semester, I took and made PowerPoint presentations directly from the knowledge that I wrote about in the book. So, what is the expression? 6, 7,
6.
6, 7, 6, 7. Either they let me use the book or I'm going to use it anyway. So 6, 7.
Oh, man. As an elementary school teacher, I heard 6, 7
Right.
all year long. It's something new every year. That's what I look forward to for the
Exactly. Well, you get a little long in the tooth after a while. Your hair starts to look like snow. And I always ask, and I teach like language development and language disorders to undergrad and grad students. And I ask them, tell me slang. Give me some
Yeah.
slang words, because the slang that I grew up with is not the slang they use today. So I'm listening to some things, and I heard 6, 7 for the first time, in one of my Q and A's with my students. So I won't tell you some of the other crap I've
No,
heard.
no, it's
You
I'll keep
know,
my ears to the streets to find all the new slang for you, don't
yeah,
worry.
yeah, yeah. Do that, do that.
So, since this podcast,
But
yeah,
I
go
what
ahead.
I'd also like to do, I use the materials that I wrote about in making presentations. My One of the things that I'm in the planning stage to do is to have maybe like an institute
Mhm.
and to bring people to post campus, and it would be like a couple of days. We ruled out a week long institute because of school schedules, and the target people that I would like to have attend are teachers and therapists and psychologists and social workers. But everybody who's in the special needs game, they all work in the summer, and they work from 4th of July to mid August, and then they have 2 weeks off in August. They're not going to come and see my shtick for one of those 2 weeks. So then that became like, maybe we'll just do an extended weekend. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's in the plans,
I would check
or
that out.
or start to get the word out there that I'm available to bring my dog and pony show to you.
I think you would make an excellent podcast show or YouTube channel. You should consider that.
Cool. Yeah, I've been told that. I've
Yeah,
been
you
told
would.
that.
This
Okay.
is not hard to do. I'm filming this on an iPhone with a microphone. That's pretty much it. Everything
I
else
thought you
is
I thought you were at the beach.
yeah. Well, this is my studio is my bedroom, and it's not very clean right now. So
Got it.
and my wife told me that I have to put a background up because she's like, "Do not show our bedroom, please." I'm like,
Yep.
"I won't." But it's simple. Like, honestly, this whole thing is run off an iPhone, a microphone, and the whole program is called Riverside. It edits everything for you. It's pretty amazing. So it's
Really?
yeah, it's
Okay.
very cool. It's very cool. So since we're talking about mastery here, what's some knowledge you can share with somebody that is looking, it may not be writing a book or whatever it is, but what are some tidbits of mastery that you can share with them? How do you stay engaged when the days get long and the work gets hard and sounds like you're spinning 5 plays at once? Like, how do you keep going?
It's a good question. One thing that keeps me going, I think, when I'm in the middle of a session is just to listen to what people are saying and to be spontaneous. Spontaneity to me is the key, because if you're going down this long dark path of people aren't really saying anything, there's nothing really cool about what they're saying, and then somebody comes up with something that's spontaneous or creative, I like to go off on that. I have this one game that I routinely do at the start of every session, and it used to be called Convo Conclave. Convo for conversation, and conclave for
For the
like when
Pope?
all the cardinals get
Yeah.
together to elect the pope. So I just keep the name conclave, which basically means let's get together and get some stuff done. Like let's elect the pope, you know. And you start off simply, ask people, how was your week? Tell me, tell me two things that are true and one thing that's not true about your week. And then the class has to guess which one's not true or true, and it just opens up the door to different conversations. Then someone says something kind of like a cool sentence, and I say that again, but now sound like a little kid, or sound like an older gentleman, or sound like you're from Australia, or just like throw different things at them and see if they can, come up with that. So to me, it's creativity and spontaneity that keeps a mundane session from miring down. You want it to be fresh, you want it to be new. And then there's always the hope that someone will remember an early sentence and say it like in the middle of our class, like 13 minutes later or 14 minutes later. You have to be, but you have to be very attentive. You have to listen to what people are saying. And of course, the other thing is there are no wrong responses in improv. Whatever you say, that's what we're going to go with. All right. And I've had to bite my own tongue because the director in me said, "No, that's not the way you say it." And I realized, wait a minute, that is the way you say it because it's improv and whatever you say is what goes. And that's what kind of keeps things going too. So as far as like creativity, spontaneity, allowing things to be expressed the way the people express them. Now, of course, you're going to have people in your classroom that are going to be more with it than not. And so I find that, for example, if we're doing a group story tell, and first I ask them to pick a genre, and then we start with the first sentence, and then the next person adds a sentence, and then the third person and the fourth person. By the time we get to certain guys in my class, can they repeat it, please? So, in other words, they weren't really listening. So, before they ask me that, I might say to them, who's in the story? What did they do? So, I try to ask focused questions based on what we had just discussed. And the reality is, they do remember because they're able to ask those simple W questions. They might not be able to spontaneously come up with the next sentence, which is okay, because as long as I know that they're engaged and they can answer questions, from that point, we can get them to say something. So we kind of bring them back into the fold of what we've been working on, you know? But it all goes back to like being attentive, recognizing social cues, being creative, and being spontaneous. And
you know,
that's one of the things that people say, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to say,
yeah,
you know?
figure it out.
Well, yeah.
We do a thing in class. It's called responsive classroom, but it's morning meeting. But every morning meeting has a game very similar to your conclave game. And and my class is an ICT class now. So, it's amazing how when kids feel comfortable in a circle, the kid that you think might not speak has no problem speaking. They once they're part of that group, and actually is a really nice icebreaker. We do it every morning, and we rotate the games. So it could be like say hello to someone in the language of your choice, or
Oh, that's cool.
step outside and change one thing on your body, like either like put your sock inside out, and then we have to guess what it is. So it's a 5-minute thing, and it really sets up the class for the whole day. You see kids being nicer to each other. They'll call back things they said in that morning meeting later on in the
I
day.
love that. That's
So it's
great.
it's
That's
great.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. I
Yeah.
think I think if more people taught like special education teachers, we would be school would be a lot more fun.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. I mean, and you have to have fun doing it too, because that's where you get the kids to be engaged. More and
Hmm.
more places are using improv that I've learned. Just in and having this, in my life now. Of course, you go to YouTube and you go to different places. Show me improv in the classroom. There are tons of video that you find of teachers using improv, and the reactions that they bring about in the kids is wonderful, and
Hmm.
it's the kind of stuff that we wish every school could actually do, you know?
Agreed. I agree totally.
Yeah, yeah, So, I love what you're doing. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's fun. And, like I said, every year is different for me. So I was fifth grade last year. I'm sixth grade this year. And I happen to have two very good co-teachers that I love. They're fantastic. I had two great co-teachers last year too, but it's funny, like every team is so different. And so
Right,
this team this year, they had been doing this responsive classroom for about 3 years. And so they're like a well-oiled machine doing it. And
right.
all it takes is a little like Ding a little bell. Every kid knows what to do. They push their desks away. They pop up to the circle. There's about a 5 to 10 minute little activity, and we go about our day. And it really sets the day up for a really, really fantastic day. It's fun. It is a good time.
So you
So,
were in the 5th grade last year and the 6th
yeah,
grade this year. Is it the same kids?
it's the same kids. Yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
I chose it because I really, they were a really excellent group of kids. And I had my choice to go maybe down or up. And I said I wanted to follow them. I'd follow them
Right.
forever. The cohort of kids that I have right now, they're just such a great mix of abilities, personalities, challenges, and it's really they're a good group of kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting, like, I've seen with education as it is, like, Oceanside at least gets, like, a new head of special ed, like, every 5 years. So every 5 years, there's a new methodology or thought process to what we're doing in special ed.
Sure. Do they leave you alone?
They do. For the most part, they do.
Well,
You
that's
know what?
good.
Like, it's amazing, how many kids have needs now versus 20 years ago? Probably because they weren't identified 20 years ago. But now I would say every class has at least half of the kids leaving for one service or another, whether it's speech or
Sure.
OT, which is great. I mean, I think it's good if kids need the help, they should get the help. So, but it's interesting how education has changed. On a side note, like I'm not a huge fan of the Google Chromebooks and the iPads in class. I think that kids with organizational problems, it does not help them to have everything like in a computer versus like in paper.
Well, it's all done for them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like probably 100 unlabeled documents in their document folder, like just no title on everything. So,
Right.
so Bob, so tell us where we can find all of your stuff. Like if someone wanted to find your material, where could they go to find all about Bob Domingo?
Wow. I mean, you see that's where I need help because right now the only place that you can go is
Can they Google you?
Facebook,
Facebook. Okay.
Facebook, because I have like the book ad. I mean, I've people tell me that you have to get more into the social media, and I agree. But I guess this is my next Rubicon that I have to cross. Is like how do I get to that stage? Well, there are a couple of things that you can find if you go to YouTube to LI. No, it's Post Broadcasting Club
Okay.
because I touched base with that club, a student-run club, for a couple of projects, and they recorded me. They did a documentary, so there
Cool.
is that. I mean, yeah, you can go to, like I said, YouTube. They have a YouTube channel,
Okay.
and it's the Post Broadcasting Club, and you can see some of my sessions. You can hear me talk about improv, and they also recorded that show I mentioned to you
Awesome.
that we did last semester, where I had my students and the young adults from PTW working things out. So, excuse me, that'll probably be where I go to now. But let me ask you, where do I go?
Okay, so what you should do, because I went through this whole thing with the podcast, I have a lot of different little plates that I spin. I own like a educational software that collects IEP data. So I have that and I have a couple other things. But if you go get a free account for Linktree, Linktree, and then you could put all of your links to whatever you have on there and then you could share it. So if you create a Linktree, it's free and put the links to it and then you can give me the Linktree and I'll put that on here so people can
Oh,
find you. Yeah.
well, that's awesome.
So link it to your Facebook. And honestly, and I'll edit part of this out. I'll just tell you though, there is a program that is very inexpensive called repurpose.io. Repurpose.
Repurpose that.
So what you can do, and it's very cool, it makes it easy to share everything. So if you put a video or a short clip of whatever you want, we could do this. I'm probably going to throw some short clips of this in there. It automatically posts it to every social media you have. So to put it on, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, yada, yada, makes it very easy to do all that at once.
Right.
But yeah, create the link tree. And then, I can actually help you out if you want to make a page on Instagram, a page on Facebook, and a LinkedIn and put those all in
Yeah.
there. And then that's your one-stop shop for everything you have.
Well, that sounds wonderful,
Yeah.
Mike. Thanks.
I'll help you do that.
Yeah,
'Cause
we'll DM each other.
For sure. Definitely. 'Cause it took me a while to do because I'm not great at social media. Like I don't use it all that often.
Right.
But once you find these little tips and tricks to kind of make it easy and like not a hard part of your day, it does help a lot. So I'll help you set that
That's
up though
great.
for sure. And
Super.
when can we expect the book out?
They're telling me April of 2026.
Cool.
Here, what I'll do is I'll also send you. Well, you must have seen it. You saw it on Facebook.
I did. Yeah.
So you can actually pre-order the book.
Cool.
There's a scan on there that you can pre-order it. It's available in hard copy, soft copy.
Cool.
So yeah, as far as them wanting me to read it, I'll have to float that by somebody.
I feel
You
like you
know,
should do snippets of it on YouTube, and that would probably do very, very well. Because again, you have a great speaking voice. So I think, and you're very endearing.
so you're saying I should just like read
Yeah.
some passages?
For sure,
Okay,
definitely. For sure, that'd be awesome. And a matter of fact, like when the book comes out, why don't we meet up again on here and we can go through some parts. You can describe it, so we'll get like a nice blast out to everybody that I know, and I think it'd be great. I think it'd be awesome.
that sounds fantastic. Thank you,
Cool.
Mike.
No
I
problem.
appreciate
No
you.
problem. Well,
Very
listen,
nice.
Bob, I'm
Very
glad
nice.
we connected again after so many years. I think
Yeah,
I love people that are just following their dreams and kind of don't take no for an answer. That's what the whole show is about. And so I love it. I love when people do what they want and they find passions that make them happy because life is short, right? So let's
that's
pack,
right. That's
pack
right.
it with whatever you can that keeps you going.
Well, from my view, 71, what is it? 71? No, 51 is the new 71, right?
Good. I'm glad. Thank God.
So, yeah, that's right. That's right. Very
Well,
cool.
listen, Bob, it was great talking to you, and I will definitely be in
Likewise.
touch. And I'll send you a copy of this, the edited version, so you can approve or disapprove, whatever you want.
Okay.
And if there's anything else you want to add, like I
Where do you
said,
throw this up on Spotify?
it goes to everything: Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. But
Great.
I'll send you a copy beforehand, so you can take a look at it and see if you love it. I hope you do. I thought it's great.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This has been a pleasure. It's
Cool.
been really very nice.
Great. Well, it's great talking to you,
Cool.
and we'll speak soon.
Likewise.
All right.
Absolutely. Take
All
care
right.
now.
Take it easy.
Have a good one.
Bye bye.